In the dead of night, the rumble of an engine and the squeal of brakes signaled terror in Soviet cities. The Chorny Voron, the Black Raven, was no ordinary vehicle. These black-painted trucks, operated by the NKVD, were designed to snatch enemies of the people and deliver them to the Gulag. The Black Raven became a symbol of Stalin's great terror. Its arrival meant a life was about to be shattered. Officially, these were bread vans or municipal trucks, but everyone knew their true purpose. The sight of one sent people scurrying indoors, praying it wasn't for them. Arrests came in the pre-dawn hours, families torn apart, the accused shoved into darkness. The Black Raven was more than transport. It was psychological warfare, a constant threat enforcing silence and conformity. To be taken was to be erased, your name whispered, then forgotten, your family shunned. Inside, people were stripped of identity, reduced to cargo for the vast network of labor camps. The journey was the first step in a process of dehumanization. From city prisons, the ordeal continued. Prisoners herded into overcrowded railway cars, known as Stolopin wagons. These rolling prisons broke the human spirit before the camps even began. The shock of arrest was compounded by the agony of transit. The state demonstrated its absolute power, controlling every aspect of a prisoner's existence. The journey itself was punishment, not just a means to an end. The Black Raven's legacy is one of fear, erasure, and the machinery of totalitarian control. Once the Black Raven's doors slammed shut, darkness and suffocation took over. Dozens were crammed into tiny, airless spaces, standing room only, bodies pressed together. The air grew foul, panic simmered, and the sensation of being buried alive was overwhelming. Some fainted, held upright by the crush of bodies. Survivor accounts describe a primal terror. Breathing became a conscious act of survival. Prisoners learned to create tiny air pockets, turning heads in unison, bracing against the truck's jolts. Social status vanished. All were reduced to a desperate, swaying mass. In these first hours, a silent understanding formed. Survival depended on collective endurance. A wave of panic could be fatal for everyone. The state stripped away freedom, even the air you breathed. This was the first lesson in helplessness and the beginning of psychological breakdown. Yet the act of enduring, regulating breath, sharing space, became a quiet form of resistance. Even in this compressed hell, the will to survive flickered. The journey's cruelty was matched only by the resilience it demanded. As days blurred together, hunger and thirst became relentless tormentors. Rations, if given, were meager, stale bread, foul water, barely enough to survive. This deprivation was deliberate. A starving prisoner is easier to control. Hunger gnawed at body and mind, reducing existence to a search for crumbs. Thirst was even more brutal. Prisoners licked condensation or sucked buttons for relief. The obsession with food and water erased all other thoughts. Survival required mental discipline, rationing every crumb, savoring each drop. Some, like Varlam Shalamov, escaped into memories of meals, using imagination as a shield. Sharing was rare but profound, a crumb of bread, a sip of water, a spark of humanity. These small acts defied the system's attempt to turn prisoners against each other. To share was to affirm community, to resist being reduced to animals. Hunger and thirst were weapons, but they also revealed the power of solidarity. Even in deprivation, the human spirit found ways to endure. In winter, a new enemy emerged, the Siberian cold. The Black Ravens and cattle cars were unheated, exposing prisoners to temperatures as low as -50°C. Most wore only the thin clothes they'd been arrested in. The cold seeped through metal and bone, a slow, merciless killer. Guards weaponized the cold, leaving doors open, letting Arctic winds blast through. Frostbite was rampant. Fingers, toes, and faces blackened and died. Survival meant huddling together, rotating positions to share body heat. Those with rural experience, stomped feet, swung arms, and improvised insulation from rags. The cold drained hope, but also forged bonds. Helping a neighbor rub frozen limbs was an act of solidarity. Waking to find a neighbor frozen was common, but the struggle to keep moving was a refusal to surrender. The cold was both a physical and psychological assault. Enduring it was a testament to human resilience. The journey often ended with a brutal forced march to the camp. Prisoners, already weakened, trudged for days through mud, snow, or swarms of insects. Armed guards and dogs flanked the column. To stumble was to risk death. The pace was relentless, the treatment inhuman. Survival meant summoning reserves of strength and relying on others. Stronger prisoners sometimes supported the weak, sharing whispered warnings or advice. Small groups, often from the same region, formed pacts of mutual aid. These bonds challenged the guards' efforts to isolate and terrorize. The march solidified the lesson. Survival was tied to group cohesion. In the crucible of suffering, loyalty and interdependence became lifelines. The forced march was a final, brutal test of body and spirit. Before the camps, nearly every prisoner faced NKVD interrogation. The goal wasn't truth, but to break the will, sleep deprivation, beatings, threats against family. Many signed false confessions implicating themselves and others in invented crimes. The confession was the state's proof of total control. Yet some resisted, not with fists, but with their minds. Prisoners recited poetry, solved math problems, or relived memories to preserve sanity, refusing to confess or maintaining an inner truth despite outward compliance was an act of defiance. This internal resistance was vital for psychological survival. Even those who broke outwardly clung to an inner self the state could not touch. The ability to separate forced lies from inner reality became a key to enduring the Gulag. The battle for the mind was as fierce as any physical struggle. Overcrowding, filth and malnutrition bred disease, typhus, dysentery, scurvy. Medical care was non-existent. The sick were often left to die. The message was clear: your life is worthless. Despair was everywhere. Death was constant, hope fragile. Yet, in this darkness, acts of humanity shone. Prisoners with medical knowledge improvised care, using rags for bandages or pine needles for vitamin C. Mutual aid, cleaning wounds, sharing water, comforting the dying, became resistance. These acts rebuilt the human community the Gulag tried to destroy. Compassion was a victory over the system's brutality. Even stripped of everything, people chose to help one another. Dignity survived in the smallest acts of kindness. In the face of death, solidarity was life's last defense. Surviving the journey to the Gulag demanded more than physical endurance. It required psychological resilience, a refusal to let the system erase your identity. True survivors clung to memory, profession, and moral compass. Reciting poetry, praying, or composing music in one's mind became acts of spiritual survival. Black humor was a weapon. Laughing at oppressors reclaimed a sliver of power. Gallows jokes and irony created mental distance from horror. Finding purpose, even in suffering, was crucial. Helping a friend, bearing witness, remembering the dead. This sense of mission transformed prisoners from victims to chroniclers. The stories of the Black Raven reveal the depths of cruelty and the heights of human endurance. Survival was a battle against despair and dehumanization. The ability to find dignity, show compassion, and keep the inner flame alive is a testament to the will to remain human. The Gulag's machinery tried to crush the spirit, but it could not extinguish it. The legacy is not just one of suffering, but of resilience and hope,